Hello and welcome again to my channel. If you have not subscribed, this is the time to do so. I will also try to remind you later on. Today we are going to talk about a brief history of yoga. Most of us who have been practicing yoga all our lives have never really gone through or taken the time to understand the history of yoga. First and foremost, there are many types of yoga. There is Hatha Yoga, there is Bhakti Yoga, there is Laya Yoga, there's Kundalini Yoga, there's Ashtanga Yoga, there's also Kama Sutra. Everybody seems to know that one. But let me go into a little more detail about this, because most of us do not know how to differentiate the history, the meaning of the name, and the branding. Because they are totally different things. First of all, the first knowledge we had of yoga was Hatha Yoga. And everybody thought that Hatha Yoga was a set of exercises that we did. Well, I got news for you. Hatha comes from the two words Ha and Ta, which refer to the sun and the moon breath. Now, how many of us knew that it had to do with breathing and not with physical exercise? But when it first came to the West, what we did was we needed a branding, a name. So we said Hatha Yoga. In fact, the exercises are only the third step of yoga. And there are 8 steps to yoga. And yoga with 8 steps is called Ashtanga Yoga. And it has nothing to do with the branding of the name Ashtanga. Ashta in Sanskrit means 8. Anga means limbs or sections or parts. Or steps, you could say. So Ashtanga is an 8-fold stage process, and out of that, the third stage is asana, which people practice. So I will, somewhere along the line, I will talk to you about the main person who became responsible for really spreading yoga in the West, and then you will understand what Ashtanga is all about. But after Hatha Yoga, we have Bhakti Yoga. Now, a Christian is a bhakta. Many religions have bhaktas. A bhakta is a person who has got devotion. Bhakti is devotion. And the yoga of devotion is connected with chanting and rituals and a total absorption in the deity, the God of your choice. So for a Christian, Christ is the Ishta Dev, the God of choice. Ishta means friend. There's also Laya Yoga. Laya means hidden, not very well noticeable. And that's a whole different branch of yoga. Which brings me to Kundalini Yoga. Now today people practice Kundalini Yoga, but there are several sections to this Kundalini Yoga. A true Kundalini master will initiate a student when I have nothing to do with physical exercises and such. Because in Kundalini, when you receive the spiritual energy from the master, the exercises form automatically. When I give Shakti to people, they go into all types of physical yoga postures, and most of them have never done yoga before. It is from here that the yoga exercises were categorized, noticed, and created. Because all the asanas that you do in yoga actually came from the spirit. When people received the Holy Spirit or the Shakti, they went into all types of physical contortions and stuff, and people noticed that and created the section of asana. And not the other way around. That is why yoga exercises are considered to be spiritual. And also this is the reason why when people do yoga exercises, they have a kind of a spiritual disposition about them, which comes about as a result of doing yoga exercises. And finally, we have Kama Sutra. And what is Kama Sutra? Kama is lust. Sutra is an aphorism or a thread. So the Kama Sutras were written explaining to us how we can use our sexuality to true celibacy to attain enlightenment. And you will say, but Kama is about sex and Kama Sutra is about sexual positions. In that case, why would you say spiritual? Why would you say celibacy? Well, in Kama Sutra Yoga, you do not release your fluids. You don't lose fluids. You retain them. And you learn to control your sexual desires. So you see, there are so many different types of yoga. Okay. Now let me go to the next section. Okay. And before I go to the next section, I want to just tell you, how did yoga come to the West? As people were advancing and becoming more and more richer, you can say, and more social, we were getting cars, we were having all types of luxuries thrown at us. People were losing their bodies. So they tried strength training, they tried flexibility. And in order to develop the flexibility, they found out that there were these guys in the Himalayas, these half-naked sadhus, who were doing all types of poses for flexibility. And that is how yoga came to the West. So its introduction itself was not spiritual, it was purely physical. Now let me go to the person who was mainly responsible for spreading yoga in the West. The yoga that we know today, the one where we have the yoga mats and the yoga blocks and the belts, which, by the way, the blocks, the belts and the bolsters were created by my teacher, Iyengar, Mr. B.K.S. Iyengar. I had the great fortune of studying with this man for more than a decade. He saved my life. When I had tuberculosis, he helped me to get well again. And I'm also grateful to the person who introduced me to Guruji. But that is a topic for another day. Okay? Now, there was a guru by the name of Krishnamacharya. And Krishnamacharya, who was very well known in his place in those days, he had a brother-in-law. He was married to the sister of a man called Iyengar, my teacher, of course. And Iyengar had tuberculosis and he wanted to live. So the story of Iyengar Yoga is that of a man who refused to die. Let's be very honest. He refused to die. And because of that, today we have exercises and we have so much in yoga that helps us with longevity. People talk about reversing aging. I don't know about that. I know that I can slow down my aging, and I have slowed down my aging through the last 38 years of yoga practice. And I practice a lot of Iyengar Yoga. Not the branded Iyengar Yoga. It's a lot more different studying with the master than taking the hand-me-downs. Now, Krishnamacharya's brother-in-law created Iyengar Yoga. Krishnamacharya had a son by the name of Dreshikacharya. And he created Vinyasa Yoga. And Krishnamacharya also had a very dedicated student by the name of Pratapi Joish, who created Ashtanga Yoga. Now, Ashtanga Yoga is a brand. As a brand, it was his. But Ashtanga, eightfold path of yoga, was not created by anybody here. It is thousands of years old. Okay? The same way that Hatha Yoga is not exercises, it's breathing. Okay? So, Iyengar focused more on stationary postures. So if you want strength training along with your yoga, practice Iyengar Yoga, where you'll go into Trikonasana and you'll stay there I stay in Trikonasana for 5 minutes. It may appear to be a short amount of time until you try. Put a timer and you see how that works. I have taught in Germany where I stood in downward dog for 10 minutes because of the training I got from Iyengar. Because he taught me how to work with the inner dynamics, where to press your finger, where to move your wrist, where to straighten the elbows, where, how, when. And when you learn these things, you'll be there stationary for minutes on end. And people will wonder how you're doing it. Because you're externally static, but internally dynamic. That is Iyengar Yoga. Vinyasa Yoga is about the flow. So Dreshikacharya focused more on flowing in your postures. Move from this pose, move to that pose. It was like a little movie of your own actions, and it is beautiful in its own way. Just as Iyengar Yoga has its own beauty, the flow The Vinyasa has its own beauty. And that was done by the son of Krishnamacharya. And Krishnamacharya's best student started teaching people cardio. So you get strength training from Iyengar Yoga, you get body movements, and to a certain extent flexibility through Vinyasa, and you get cardio-respiratory endurance through Ashtanga. Ashtanga the brand, because what actually a lot of Ashtanga deals with is nothing but sun salutations, which is a branch of Surya Namaskars, where people would go out in the cold in the Himalayas, it's freezing. They did not have heaters like we have today. And they would face the sun, and you can feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, no matter how cold it may be. And they would look at the sun, meditate on the sun, and do these fast exercises and raise their heart rate, raise their pulse, and stay alive. So these are the three types of yoga which have really come to the West. And it is important for us to understand that. Now, a person who is practicing yoga or a person who wishes to practice yoga, I sincerely beg of him or her, do not get carried away by the hype of yoga. When you're going to a college, you don't let your friends decide which subjects you're going to take. Oh, Maria is going in for psychology, so I will do that. John is going for to be a doctor, so I will do that. No, you make your own decision based on maybe studies that you'll have, maybe questionnaires that you'll have, but more importantly, based on your passions and what you want to do in life, right? In the same way, when you are going to practice yoga, you don't get carried by the hype. You don't get carried away by the friends. They are all doing that yoga, so I'll do it. No. You want to understand what is the best form of yoga for you. And it's not even these three brands. It could be Laya Yoga. It could be Kundalini Yoga. It could be, and not the Kundalini brand, by the way. It could be Hatha Yoga, the breathings. It could be Kama Sutra. Why not? But you need to find out. A college student who is going to take a course or a degree in college looks at his subjects and decides. In the same way, you have to look at these aspects. You got to look at what Iyengar Yoga can give you, what Vinyasa can give you, what Ashtanga can give you, what any form of yoga can give you for that matter. Today there are thousands of different brands, but they don't fall into the category that I'm giving you right now. This is the basic category. I am the CEO and founder of Kripa Yoga. Yes. But what is it? It's just a brand. It's nothing to do with your decision on what you are going to choose to improve and evolve. Okay? So, don't get carried by the hype. Decide for yourself. Do I need more of strength training? I'll do Iyengar. Do I need more of flexibility and body flow? I will do Vinyasa. Do I need more of cardio-respiratory? I will do Ashtanga. This is very important. And if you don't do this, you'll just be going with the flow, but not the Vinyasa flow. You'll be going with whatever the flow is of the friends and socializing and stuff. And if that's for you, fine. But if you really want to practice yoga and you really want to grow in yoga and reap the fruits of yoga, understand what I've told you before you make your decision. Go to different teachers. Go to different teachers and see what they have to offer you. See what experience you get from the different teachers. And look for yourself and ask yourself, what do I really need from yoga? And then make your decision whom you're going to go to. Okay? Do not follow the broad gate like Christ said. Use the narrow gate, but it will take you very far and high. The broad gate will get you lost in the mob. Now, there is also different books for yoga. And a lot of people don't know these books. If you do, great. If you don't, then I'm going to list a few books. One of them is the Shiva Sutras. I will not say much about it, but if you have the time, if you can download some PDFs online or buy a book online, read the Shiva Sutras. What is very well known today is Patanjali Yoga Sutras. That was because my teacher and Krishnamacharya's followings, they promoted this book a lot. Patanjali wrote 4 books, Sadhana Pada, Samadhi Pada, Vibhuti Pada and Kaivalya Pada. These are the 4 paths, 4 books, little books. Each book will be 2 pages in print. 2 pages. So you know what I'm talking about. But those are sutras. One sentence could go into 1,000 pages in explanation, but the sentence would not change, because in the earlier days there was no writing. It was traditionally carried by teacher to student, or sometimes in the families. Okay, so you have Shiva Sutras, you have Patanjali Yoga Sutras, you have the Geranda Samiti. Do take your time to read the Geranda Samiti. It gives you a little different take on the yoga postures, because it gives you a vague type of an explanation of what that pose is. And you'll find that you can do that same pose in many different ways based on what the Geranda Samiti says, and not necessarily based on what your yoga teacher is telling you or what the Iyengar or other traditions are telling you. Okay? And we're very honest, just because I've been with Iyengar does not mean that is the right thing. Now, I'm not an iconoclast, and I'm not a, what is the right thing? A real fanatical type of a person. Okay? Then there is something to do with the yoga of the mind, Yoga Vashishta. Fantastic book. If you have not read it, it's time to go down to the bookstore and buy it. I don't know whether you have Barnes and Noble still going on or whether you're going to buy it from Amazon, and whether you still patronize Amazon based on what has happened about him going into space and stuff. There is another book, okay? Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Go for that. And I really wish you well on your journey with yoga. If I said anything that kind of makes you feel a little icky, or makes you feel bad, or makes you not like me, my apologies. Especially when I talk about go to all the different teachers, and some teachers may feel bad or insulted because they've taken time to create their little groups, and it is all about earning your daily bread also, and I do understand that. So I'm not telling you to leave your teacher, but what I'm asking you is to understand what you need. And in order to do that, I had to make this video, because a lot of people came to me after the previous video. They've called me, they texted me, they spoke to me, they came personally to me and said, Swami, this was not right. And I realized that I kind of did not deliver that stuff properly. And I had to give a proper explanation of what I'm trying to say and where I am coming from. Okay. And finally, before I close up, special request. Whatever you do, it takes you just a brief second, but it also has a lot to go with what you think about me and what I have had to offer in this video. So please, if you can, like, comment, share this video so that others can learn from it. And if you really would like to hear more stuff from me like this, subscribe. Your subscriptions mean a lot to me. They are like the fuel, the atomic fuel that drives me to make more videos. Okay? So God bless you. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you in the next video. Ta-da!